Empty in the middle. 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 Empty in the middle.
She a suspect?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello. Welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. Now, this is going to be part 4 in the Dylan is a Villain series. And this is the one that splits the room, but it splits the room for the wrong reasons, in my humble opinion. When you watch this video, I ask everybody to watch it with an open mind. Get rid of your preconceived notions, especially the ones that tell people about, this crime started at 1:30, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Just remove all those preconceived notions and just try to focus in on the facts, because that's what I try to do in this case as much as possible. And if you haven't already seen part 1 of this series, part 2, part 3, even the bonus episode of this series where I go over in no uncertain terms the only evidence that's available to us that tells us that the conversation that Dylan had with her boyfriend Quinn was likely 2 hours before this crime. And knowing that in advance, you know a lot more about her actions around this crime than you probably would want to know. And I believe what it tells us is that some kind of foreknowledge must have been directed to her. Therefore, I'm not saying she knew everything that was going to happen or anything beyond just you better stay in your room, keep your mouth shut. But I think it does help us determine, when you're listening to what she's telling these investigators over time, what she actually knew. And the fact that what she was saying that is consistent over and over again is likely the truth. Because you see, when people tell lies, their lies tend to change over time. And trying to determine the truth in statements from witnesses, I think, is much more important than determining when they're lying. And the fact that nobody wants to believe the particular statements of Dylan is a villain that go along with the evidence in the crime, as we have broken down so many times, is perplexing to me. And it may even be purposeful, because I believe that they've done so much to try to discredit Dylan in this case by taking her statements in line, meaning law enforcement, everybody in the communities. Just focusing on every lie that she tells to try to destroy her credibility as far as everything that she says. I think it has, in a way, manipulated a lot of our minds as to the words that we're actually hearing coming out of her mouth. Now, that may all sound a little bit clear as mud, but I think when you look at the real evidence around the crime scene compared to what she says, you'll see that some of those statements that she makes are easily corroborated. And it's also clear that from the beginning, if you try to determine the difference between the lies and what she actually knew, she divulges it over and over in her statements to law enforcement. And some things never change. Other things kind of change over time, which tells you, which one that she was lying about. And she was lying in a way where she told on herself many, many times. So what I've done is I've just gone through every single statement that we have available to us that Dylan made to law enforcement. I've focused in on certain areas of what she's saying, and I have numbered them, how many times she says it and how long she continued to say it. And what you'll find is she continued to say one thing that I think is very important all the way through even grand jury testimony. So keep an open mind. And if you watch this video and listen with an open mind, trying to figure out what the truth really is, I think by the end of it, you're going to have a pretty good idea of why Bob focuses on what he focuses on around the time frame of this crime, and why this crime happened in the time frame it did, because of what it really tells us. Hold on to your hats, folks. Dylan number 4 coming right at you. Going through all the interviews that Dylan has given, now that we have most of it, one thing is even more obvious to me now. It always has been, but I think it's going to be a lot more obvious to other people as we get through this if they really watch it with an open mind. And that's the fact that Dylan, when she talks about Kaylee being in the living room with Murphy, that everybody wants to ignore, including law enforcement, which is amazing to me considering how many times she says it. Dylan clearly differentiates Kaylee in the living room with Murphy, going upstairs, screaming, yelling someone's here, and then running back downstairs, and then Murphy barking, with the person that she heard crying, who she says is in the bathroom. She clearly differentiates the two people the entire time in all of her interviews. I mean, clearly, she knows it's Kaylee in the living room, running upstairs, running back downstairs. And she knows it's Xana in the bathroom, well, she says the bathroom, but she knows it's Xana in the bedroom crying. And if you follow along with every interview that she does, she never even comes off of this. I mean, all the way through her grand jury testimony. So for people to ignore this particular issue is amazing to me. But we're going to go through it in a very detailed way, and I'll show you what I've got up to this point. Starting with the Nunes interview. All right, when we go through the Nunes interview, the first time she mentions this is right here. All I heard was go upstairs, like, okay, I'm going to sleep now, because she's going upstairs. And then all of a sudden, you heard who go upstairs, says Nunes? Kaylee and the dog, Murphy. And upstairs to the very top, yeah, that's where her room is, okay? And then all of a sudden, I heard her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. She said, someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. This is the first time that she tells this particular part of this story.
All I heard was I heard her go upstairs, like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Yeah, that's where her room is.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared.
Then to differentiate the second part of her story, guilters take this second part of her story and try to turn it into the first part of her story, but Dylan never does, I assure you. And then in the bath, I heard someone in the bathroom. I heard someone in the bathroom. Now, see, as she goes through this, every time she is very clear it's Kaylee. I mean, all the way through all of her interviews. It's Kaylee. And went upstairs, screamed someone's here, and ran downstairs. Kaylee, Kaylee, Kaylee. When she gets to the person in the bathroom, that's where her memory becomes an issue on who it is. I heard someone in the bathroom. And I heard her crying. And I heard some guy saying, you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door a second time. So she never ever says that it's Kaylee that she heard. She says someone and then calls it a her and a she. Throughout all the interviews, you'll see a pattern. The pattern is Dylan hears Kaylee in the living room, go upstairs, run downstairs. The pattern also shows a deviation with who she thinks is crying in the bathroom. She more often than not refers to this person as her, she, the person, and later on in interviews, she acknowledges it's likely Xana. She never wanes from the person going upstairs and running downstairs as Kaylee. So as we continue through this, we find out right here, okay, who all lives here with you? Me, Bethany, Xana. Who's Bethany? That blonde girl right there. Okay, who's Xana? Xana? Xana is the girl in there. Is the girl that? Yes. We know right here early on in the interview that Dylan knows it's Xana that's laying in Xana's room on the floor. There's no question about it because she says she's the girl in there. So we're not going to get confused with what Dylan knows at this point. She knows it was Xana in the bedroom. She also knows it was Ethan in the bedroom with him. And Ethan, who's in there, he doesn't actually live here, but he's here like almost all the time. So when she's having the interview with Nunes, it's not she's questioning whether or not is Ethan there or not. She says, and Ethan, who's in there? He doesn't actually live here. He's in the room with Xana, I believe. He's in there, I believe. No, you know he's in there, Dylan. So at this point in time, there's no question. Dylan knows that it's Xana on the floor. Ethan's in the room with her. And she knows there's a difference between the person that she heard in the living room go upstairs and come back downstairs and the person that she heard crying in the bathroom. And they're not the same people. She knows it, and everybody else should know it by the end of this. Officer Nunes. And who? Dylan Mortensen. Kaylee Gonzalez. She's the girl that I was talking about. Kaylee, who I heard her go upstairs and then run back downstairs. Here's the second time that she has clearly stated she knows under no uncertain terms that it was Kaylee that goes upstairs and then runs back downstairs. Then as she gets into a little bit more detail, everybody focuses on the 4 a.m., not me, because that's not what the evidence shows. In my opinion, the evidence shows 4:12 to 4:19. So what does Dylan say? Yes, it was 4 o'clock, 4:10. She's never really specifying 4 a.m. like everybody. Yeah, pretty much at 4 a.m. No, she specifies over and over between 4 o'clock and 4:20. And this one, she literally throws in the 4:10 number, which is much closer to the real timeline. You first noticed a guy. Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs. Once again, the third time she's expressly stated she knows it was Kaylee that ran upstairs, screamed, and ran downstairs. Now, Nunes interjects, so 4 o'clock this morning, Kaylee went upstairs. So he ignores the 4:10 and he goes with the 4. Yeah, she's just agreeing. To the top. To the way top, yes. To her room with Murphy the dog. Okay, and then you heard Kaylee scream. I heard her scream and run like as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here. She ran downstairs. Yes, I could hear. You can hear everything. I heard her run downstairs really fast, and then I heard Murphy barking a lot. Again, I'm counting this as the third time she's explained the Kaylee's running upstairs. I could have said that's the fourth time because she said it again. But this is also the first time where she says, then I heard Murphy barking a lot. And this is what kills me about the true crime community. The true crime community will say that could be any dog we hear barking at 4:17 when we hear all the other stuff on the camera. That could be any dog in the neighborhood barking. Dylan clearly describes 3 separate times in the first interview that she was certain she heard Kaylee in the living room with Murphy go upstairs, scream someone's ear, run fast down the stairs. She's less certain who she heard crying in the bathroom. She mentions Murphy barking a lot at this time. For people to believe that that is some other dog in the neighborhood and that Dylan is some kind of mastermind that pre-thought out the texts and calls between her and Bethany, they would also have to believe that she was such a mastermind that she planned those out around the time that Murphy is barking. When you listen to not just the audio of Murphy barking, you've all listened to the audio for hours and hours and hours. There is no other time of a dog barking continuously on the audio. So to think that some other dog barking and Dylan's lying and this happened earlier blows my ever-loving mind, because there is no way that you can possibly believe Dylan thought it out that well to include Murphy barking in her timeline when you hear Murphy barking on the camera audio. Well, the cops, they made it up. They manipulated the audio. Come on now. Give me a break. That's why I say when you take the statements and you take the evidence and you match them together, then it gives you the truth. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Somebody tell me another time where Murphy could have been barking at, 2 or 3 or any time like that to coincide with the story that we're hearing that just happens to have Murphy barking at the exact time we hear it on the audio. And it's amazing to me that law enforcement can't even say that they misunderstood what Dylan was saying in her interviews, because they wrote supplemental reports summarizing what she told them. Right here, we have Mitch Nunes' report of what Dylan told him on the scene. And you can see he actually wrote this report on November 13th. And he says that Dylan told me at approximately 4 o'clock, she heard a voice scream and believed it to be Kaylee's. She said she heard Kaylee scream, announced there was someone inside the residence. She said she could hear Kaylee run from the 3rd floor down the stairs to the 2nd floor. And it says into the northwest bedroom. So Nunes was clear that Dylan said it was Kaylee that went upstairs, screamed, and went downstairs. He messed up the last part about her running into the northwest bedroom. She never actually said that. But he was pretty clear about what she did say. So they can't say they got that mixed up with Kaylee was on the 3rd floor, right? Because in the probable cause affidavit, it doesn't say anything like that. It says Dylan was awakened at 4 o'clock, but what she thought, or what she stated, sounded like Gonzalez playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the 3rd floor. Never once does Dylan ever make this statement. And never once in any of the supplemental narratives that the officers wrote of their conversations with Dylan do they say that she said this. So this couldn't even have been confused. It's just a lie. Now that we know, and we know they didn't know this until January 24th when they tested this evidence, but we know now all of this blood that was all over this pong table, big old splotches of blood. Look, blood cast off over here. Look at all this blood. It's not just a little bit, it's a ton. Look at all of it. Blood cast off. Blood. Even the blood on the side. In fact, they didn't know this wasn't Xana's until 2025. They thought it was hers from 2024 through 2025. But when they arrested Koberger, wrote the PCA, they had no idea this was Kaylee's blood on this pong table. They didn't find that out until after they had tried to match his DNA to the knife sheath. All they knew when they arrested Koberger was Xana's blood was on her own floor. Maddie's blood was on this railing on the stairs. Ethan's transfer was on the railing going between the 2nd and the 1st floor. And there was a cast off of mixture of Kaylee and Maddie on the wall here. That's all they knew. So why did they change this to Gonzalez playing with her dog in the upstairs bedroom, which was located on the 3rd floor? And then Megan Marshall, the judge, when they brought her the arrest warrant affidavit, or the probable cause affidavit to obtain the arrest warrant, she would have had enough sense to look at it and go, well, then how did he get Kaylee upstairs to Maddie's room by himself? So how are y'all explaining that? Well, they couldn't explain that. So they had to change it to Kaylee being upstairs with Murphy, playing with her dog on the 3rd floor, because if she's in the living room, nobody's coming through that back door if Kaylee's in the living room and going up the stairs. Also, Kaylee running down the stairs and being attacked, one person is not going to be able to do that, carry her back upstairs, then downstairs, assault Ethan and Xana. She knows, or she would have known, that was impossible. So they would have never brought that to her to get the arrest warrant. They had to omit it. It's been omitted ever since. Let's continue. Mallory interview. Dylan, then everyone's asleep at 4 a.m. And look at this. In this transcript, they cut out this whole section right here, which I find interesting. Something like dancing. So what did I do? I had to go to the original interview with Mallory and Dylan, where it's actually recorded, pull the transcript from that part of the interview, and here's what it says in this missing portion. So then everyone's asleep at 4 a.m. I look at my phone. Look at my phone, and I can hear Kaylee and Murphy dancing because because I can tell it's her voice. So why did they cut this out? It's very clear in the interview. You can hear her say it really clear. Even the YouTube transcription picks it up clearly. But they left out this part about I can hear Kaylee and Murphy like dancing and I could tell it's her voice. So, and it's Murphy because he's barking. Second time she's mentioned Murphy barking around this time. And I hear her go upstairs because you can hear like everything. And I heard her say there's someone here. I thought she ran downstairs and then I jumped up and locked my door because I didn't know what else to do. This is the fourth time she has clearly stated she heard Kaylee and Murphy go upstairs, her scream someone's here, and then run downstairs. Second time she's mentioned Murphy barking. Detective Mowry. Okay, so you hear Kaylee upstairs. She's dancing, playing with the dog. So Mowry messes it up and says you hear Kaylee upstairs. Dylan goes along, but then she corrects Mowry. Yeah, everything probably. Detective Mowry. Dylan, yeah. Mowry. And then she says there's someone here. So Dylan's going to correct him because she can see he's already messing it up. Yeah, when she goes, I can hear her go upstairs. And then I think she's in her room and she says that someone's here and I can tell she's scared and she runs downstairs. Where do you think she ran? I don't know if she ran past the stairs, okay, or if she was in the living room. Okay, but you heard her on the stairs. Yeah, I heard her running like super fast down the stairs.
And then I hear her go upstairs because you can hear like everything. And I heard her say, there's someone here. And I thought she ran downstairs. And then I jumped up and locked my door because I didn't know what else to do. Okay. Yeah, when she goes out, I can hear her go upstairs. And then I think she's in her room and she says that someone's here and I can tell she's scared and she runs downstairs. I don't know if she made it past the stairs or if it was in the living room. Yeah, I heard her running like super fast down the stairs.
Fifth time she's explained with no uncertain details that it was Kaylee. But this is where I think it's interesting. This is where you have to separate Kaylee from Xana in Dylan's statements. She says, yeah, I think she's in her room. She runs downstairs and all this. And Mowry says, where do you think she ran? Does Dylan say, I think she ran to the bathroom? No. She says, I don't know if she ran past the stairs, which is right in front of her room. Okay. Or it was in the living room, or if she's in the living room, I don't know, but she never says, or if she made it to the bathroom. If she thought it was Kaylee really crying in the bathroom, she wouldn't say I don't know if she made it past the stairs or maybe made it to the living room. She would have said, well, I think she made it to the bathroom because I heard her crying later. This is where you got to really pay attention to this stuff. She knows that Kaylee never made it past the stairs or the living room because she can hear everything right outside her door. Fifth time she says it with conviction. Then she says, I opened the door again and I heard what I thought. Now, never before when she's talking about Kaylee does she say, I thought it was Kaylee. She says, I know it was Kaylee. But now she's hearing what she thought was Kaylee crying in the bathroom and heard this voice saying, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Mowry, so when you opened the door, you thought you heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom. And then she immediately says, yeah, and look how it's in highlighted black here. I think the defense knows this stuff, y'all. Either that or they were trying to push Kaylee with Xana. I don't know. Yeah, but it could have been Xana. But I thought it was Kaylee at the time. Not it could have been Xana that I heard going up and down the stairs. That it could have been Xana in the bathroom crying is what they're talking about right here. And don't ever mistake it, because it's not like after this statement she went to saying it could have been Xana going up and down the stairs, because she did not, all the way through grand jury testimony. So here's the first time Dylan acknowledges that it was likely Xana she heard crying in the bathroom, but not that it was Xana she heard going up the stairs. First time. Now, can we say that Mowry was confused at what she said? Because it did sound really confusing as you listen to Mowry try to interview Dylan. But no, actually, Mowry took away from the interview exactly what Dylan said. And he actually wrote this narrative on November 28, 2022. or he updated it or changed it on this date, because it actually is dated 11/15/2022, talking about what he did on November 13th. So it's like he went in and changed it after the fact. But either way, he still says Dylan said she woke up at around 4, where she could hear Kaylee and Murphy, the dog, dancing. Dylan said she knew it was Kaylee because she recognized her voice and could hear Murphy barking. Dylan said she heard Kaylee go upstairs and say there's someone here. Dylan said she thought she heard Kaylee run back down the stairs. Dylan said Kaylee sounded scared when she made this statement. So Mallory didn't mistake it. Who did? Who changed it in the PCA? Payne? He never even talked to her. And I'll prove it as we continue to go through, because now we're going to the Gooch interview. The Gooch interview. It starts off with 4 a.m. around 4 to 4:20. Not 4 a.m., between 4 and 4:20. I believe this happened at 4:12. I don't know if I was still drunk, blah, blah, blah. Heard her playing music. How do you know it was her? I don't really know for sure why I knew it was her, but I think it's because I heard her voice and she was probably singing. I knew for sure it was her when she walked upstairs and said someone's here. That's how I knew for sure that it was Kaylee. 6 times she said it. Now let's think about it for a second. This is in an interview with Gooch 3 days later, 4 days later. And she's telling her that's how I knew for sure it was Kaylee going up the stairs. So you can't get it confused with this statement with Mallory where she says it could have been Xana, but I thought it was Kaylee at the time, because they're talking about who was in the bathroom crying. See the difference? It's easy for me to see. So pretty much like walked up the stairs, knew it was Kaylee. Okay, so we walked up the stairs with Murphy. I think that's incorrect. Let's see, not to me. I don't know if she knew I was awake, but so I think it's supposed to be she. So she walked up the stairs with Murphy. I think she got almost to the top of the stairs just by how many like stomps there was. And she said someone was here frantically, but then she tries to minimize it, but it wasn't like a yell. From what I remember, I think she just like ran down the stairs pretty fast and it just stopped.
So you awakened at somewhere between 4 and 4:20 a.m.
Around 4 to 4:20, woke up out of nowhere. I heard her playing music.
How do you know it was her? I guess I should ask that.
I think it's because I heard her voice and she's probably singing. I knew for sure it was her when she walked upstairs and she said someone's here. That's how I knew for sure that it was Kaylee.
And I can hear Kaylee and Murphy like dancing, because I can tell it's her voice and that it's Murphy because he's barking.
You see, she's very clear as she talks about Kaylee going up the stairs, screaming, running down the stairs. This is the second time she talks about Kaylee's activity just stopped as she ran down the stairs. Remember before she said, I don't know if she made it past the stairs or maybe to the living room. Now she's telling us it just stopped. There's where Kaylee's blunt force happened. And this is where you separate who she heard in the bathroom from who she heard going up and down the stairs. Guessing off what I think, but I think I remember hearing barking when Kaylee said that. Again, she's acknowledging this is where you hear Murphy barking. This gives us the time this happened because it coincides with the actual audio. Detective Gooch, was this at the time you heard Kaylee running? Yes. What's Kaylee saying? She just said someone's here and then nothing else from what I remember. 7th time she's acknowledged that she knew it was Kaylee going up and down the stairs. Then Blaker tries to chime in on Gooch's interview, but sounded like you said you heard someone's here and then heard frantic yelling. Blaker's trying to coincide Kaylee with Xana in the bathroom, messing up Gooch's interview. So after I heard Kaylee say that, from what I think I can remember is I opened the door, I remember looking up the stairs. I looked again, I don't know if this is real or not, blah, blah, blah. But from what I think I heard was, again, someone was crying in the bathroom. Not what I think I heard was Kaylee crying in the bathroom, but someone. And I think it was Kaylee, but I don't know. I couldn't tell. And I was just, you see, when it gets to the person crying in the bathroom, it's either I think it could be Xana or it may have been Kaylee, but I don't know. I couldn't tell. So after I heard Kaylee say that, she's dead set. She knows it was Kaylee who went up the stairs, said that. When it gets to the person in the bathroom, that's where she hems and haws because she knows that was Xana. 8th time she declared it was Kaylee that went up and down the stairs. 2nd time she's acknowledged that it may not have been Kaylee she heard crying in the bathroom. Blaker, which bathroom? Oh, the one that me and Xana share on the 2nd floor. And again, I don't know for sure if this was in the bathroom. Here's Dylan acknowledging it was in the area of the bathroom. So we know just from what happened, it was likely Xana's bedroom. No, it's okay. I'm going to help you. I think I called out for Kaylee and Xana because it was the 2nd floor. And I was just like, Kaylee, Xana. This is the first time where Dylan tells on herself and says she called out for Kaylee and Xana, which indicates she knows that it was Kaylee hid on the stairs and Xana crying in the bedroom. It's right there in our face. On to say, later on in the interview, do you remember if Murphy was barking? I don't think so. I think he was only barking when Kaylee said something. And I think he left the house. So this is the 9th time that Dylan has acknowledged that he was only barking when Kaylee said something. She knows it was Kaylee. She's not getting confused on who was in the living room, going upstairs, screaming someone's here, running back downstairs with the person who was crying in the bathroom. By the way, this is the 4th time that she acknowledges that Murphy was barking. And this is, I think, the 2nd time she acknowledges that she thinks he left the house as he was barking. She goes on to say, you're going to be okay. It was directed at the person crying in, the bathroom. Sorry if I got that mixed up. So this is the 3rd time she acknowledges that the person crying in the bathroom was likely not Kaylee. Now, did Gooch misunderstand what Dylan told her? This was on November 20th when she wrote her report of her interview her and Blaker conducted with Dylan on the 17th. Did they get confused? Let's see. Gooch says that she advised around 4 to 4:20. She heard Kaylee singing and playing music. She heard who she believed Kaylee, she heard who she believed Kaylee. She heard who she believed Kaylee walking up the stairs, and blank advised she heard Kaylee say, someone's here. Dylan advised she heard Kaylee say, someone's here, and she sounded frantic. Dylan described Kaylee's tone as somewhere between talking and yelling it. She believed it was Kaylee who was walking up the stairs with Murphy. She said she heard who she believed to be Kaylee running down the stairs. She advised Murphy was barking at this time. She further stated she believed it was Kaylee who was running down the stairs after she heard her say, someone's here. The 2nd time when she opened her door, she heard who she believed to be Kaylee crying, and Dylan believed Kaylee was in the 2nd floor bathroom. She believes it was Kaylee who was the one crying, but Dylan stated now that she had gathered additional information, she now believes it was probably Xana who was crying. So Gooch was very clear. She knew that it was Kaylee going up and down the stairs, but it was Xana crying in the bathroom. Very easy to make those two distinctions. So she didn't get confused. Who got confused with that PCA saying that she was on the 3rd floor playing with Murphy? She never said it in any interview, and they were clear in their narratives that she never said it. So this was a actual lie that should have really been focused on a lot better by the defense, in my humble opinion. But I also believe that her consistency across all these statements is true. It's the truth. It's what happened. It's an interview. Most parts of it dealing with the subject we're talking about is actually cut out and missing. So we don't get to hear her tell the story in detail about Kaylee. We don't get to hear her tell the story in detail about her pictures and her boyfriend text messages, but we can still gather some parts because they leave some in there. At one point, she says, I guess another thing I should have said before is when I heard Kaylee go upstairs, there's the 10th time she's clarified with no uncertain terms that she heard Kaylee go upstairs. And this is in the third interview. I mean, this is in the December 1st interview with Williamson. I mean, at this point, she still is acknowledging it's Kaylee. And then she again says, like I just heard Murphy's bark like distant. So there's the 5th time she's discussed Murphy's distant bark. 10th time she's clarified the person that she knows went upstairs was Kaylee. She goes on to say, as she's talking about what she was talking about with Quinn, there's someone in her house, like, and Kaylee said someone was here. There's the 11th time she's clearly made the distinction. And someone was crying in the bathroom. There's the 3rd time she has made a clear distinction that the person in the bathroom was not Kaylee. It was someone else. She knew it was Xana. She knew it was Kaylee that was going up and down the stairs. Very clear. So you remember calling out their names, Erin Williamson said. She's picked up on it at this point. Yeah, it was just, didn't hear anything? Dylan, Kaylee's and Xana's, though. Okay, I don't know why I was just calling out their names. Dylan again telling on herself. She knew it was Kaylee and Xana. Kaylee on the stairs, Xana in the bathroom/bedroom. Now, we don't have Williamson's supplemental, of course. Well, we don't get to see that. But we've moved forward to the grand jury testimony. Remember, this is in May of the next year. And Dylan is still quite certain of the facts around this situation and who she knew was going up the stairs, down the stairs, and who was in the bedroom. So again, there are a lot of things missing in the grand jury testimony around this subject, but they left us some things, such as, and at that time I heard someone crying in the bathroom. At the time, I believe it was Kaylee. I don't know if it was Kaylee for sure or not, but at that time I did believe it was her. And then I heard a man's voice say, no, it's okay, I'm going to help you. And I didn't know who the man's voice was. So this is her trying to act like that she thought it was Kaylee in the bathroom, but acknowledging at that time she thought it was her. But at this time, she doesn't believe it was her. She believes it was Xana. So that'll be number 4. But don't get it confused with her thinking it was Xana in the living room and going upstairs, because she clarifies that later in the testimony. And then what do you remember happening? I'm pretty sure I yelled out to Kaylee and Xana. I think I yelled out Xana because I believe the crying and the man's voice was coming from the bathroom. Her actually telling on herself that she knew it was Xana crying in the bathroom, but she was crying in the bedroom. And I also believed I yelled out Kaylee and Xana's names a few times because she knew it was Kaylee in the living room going upstairs, coming down the stairs. She acknowledges she knew it was Xana in the bathroom. There's the 5th time. But let's make sure that we're not confused and thinking that Dylan is saying that she thinks it's Xana that was in the living room, because she definitely clarifies that later in the grand jury testimony. Now it cuts off this part, so we don't get to hear her say this, but picks up right here. No, I think she was like singing and kind of talking to Murphy, but I don't remember really what she said at all. Okay, now was that before or after you heard her scream? This was before I heard her say, someone's here. When she's talking about her, it's Kaylee because she says it right here. Okay, do you know what Murphy was doing at this time? When Kaylee had said someone's here, this was before I heard her say someone's here. When Kaylee had said someone's here. This is in a grand jury testimony. After she's already gotten back and forth on the bathroom thing 6 different times, she still clarifies the person that she heard in the living room was Kaylee. Go upstairs, say someone's here. 6th time that she talks about Murphy barking. I don't know how much he was barking, but I remember hearing his barking at a distance, like he had gone out the door. But then she continues to clarify. So I, like when Kaylee said someone's here and walking up these stairs, That's what I heard. His barking getting kind of like distance, like he had gone outside or something. 13th and 14th time that Dylan clarifies, even through the grand jury, that she heard Kaylee in the living room walking up the stairs, scream someone's here, and run down the stairs, and clarify that that person that she was hearing doing that was not the person that she heard in the bathroom, which was Xana. Across 4 interviews and grand jury testimony, most of the 4th interview is missing, and a lot of the grand jury interview is missing. Dylan still said at least 14 different times she was sure it was Kaylee in the living room with Murphy. She went upstairs, screamed someone's here, then ran downstairs. She held true that it was Kaylee through the grand jury interview, so there can be no mistake. 6 different times across these interviews, at least, she either acknowledged or alluded to the fact that it was likely Xana crying in the bathroom, but conceded it could have been the bedroom. And also on 6 different times, she stated Murphy was barking at this time and he likely ran outside while he was barking. So when I take everything and I look at this lying statement in the probable cause affidavit, at no point could anybody confuse Dylan saying that Kaylee was upstairs in the 3rd floor bedroom playing with Murphy. That was an outright lie to PCA. Police reports of the conversation verify this could not even been mistaken as what she said by them. So the final synopsis, y'all. When Dylan says this so many times consistently, it matches the physical evidence of the crime scene. She states the Murphy barking at this time in interviews on November the 13th, twice, November the 17th. Both of those are 4 days prior to the Moscow PD being able to even view properly the 1112 video, much less listen to it. So the barking on the audio starts less than 2 minutes prior to all the calls and text messages. At the same time, you hear the muffled screams and the car speed away. When you combine all that together, the likelihood of the crime happening at this time is literally 99.9%, in my humble opinion. There's no way that Dylan can consistently discuss Murphy barking at that time in advance of them actually hearing the audio and putting it with the text messages, and Murphy just happens to be barking loudly at that time. With her statement matching the physical evidence, the video, the audio, one has to conclude it's all one event. When you do that, you'll know that there's 4 perps necessary to accomplish this based on the event, because it happened between 4:12 and 4:19.
So you awakened at somewhere between 4 and 4:20 a.m.
Around 4 to 4:20, woke up out of nowhere. I heard her playing music.
How do you know it was her? I guess I should ask that.
I think it's because I heard her voice and she's probably singing. I knew for sure it was her when she walked upstairs and she said someone's here. That's how I knew for sure that it was Kaylee.
And I can hear Kaylee and Murphy like dancing because I can tell it's her voice and that it's Murphy because he's barking. And then I hear her go upstairs because you can hear like everything. And I heard her say there's someone here, and I thought she ran downstairs. And then I jumped up and locked my door because I didn't know what else to do. Yeah, when she goes, I can hear her go upstairs, and then I think she's in her room and she says that someone's here, and I can tell she's scared and she runs downstairs. I don't know if she made it past the stairs or if it was in the living room. Yeah, I heard her running like super fast down the stairs.
My determination from all of that is Dylan knew likely from the start. Kaylee was in the living room, ran upstairs, screamed someone's here, ran downstairs, never made it past either the stairs or the living room, as she clearly stated over and over. And she knew that it was likely not Kaylee in the bedroom that was crying. It was likely Xana. But don't anybody get it confused, because guilters want to say, well, she was talking about Xana the whole time, confusing Xana. She never made that mistake or even that assumption. It was always, I know exactly who was in the living room. I know exactly who went upstairs, and I know exactly who screamed someone's here. I know exactly who ran back down the stairs. I was not certain about who was crying in the bathroom. It's very clear that she knew the difference between Dylan and Xana, and there's no reason to even contemplate mixing up with Kaylee and Xana. There's no reason to mix up Xana with what Kaylee was doing, like a lot of people want to make up in their mind. Well, Xana went upstairs and confronted. Xana said someone's here. Yeah, Xana was 0.22 alcohol level, eating some food. She got her food, went in her bedroom, never made it back out of that bedroom, as the evidence shows. All of these people that can't seem to understand the evidence or get it right that I hear talking about it. I mean, I heard even on the conversations the other day, I believe with Jeffrey Gentry, he tried to say, well, that's why Xana's blood was found in the living room, which makes sense. They all follow the wrong reports. None of them can figure out the DNA reports. I don't know if that was done on purpose or it was just so messed up that it's confused everybody to this day. No DNA. Don't let anybody out there lie to you. Go through the reports, look at them yourself. It's very difficult, but go through and look at them yourself. No DNA of Xana is found outside of the threshold of her bedroom door in any form, in any fashion. Wasn't in the kitchen, wasn't in the living room, wasn't on the half wall, wasn't on the baseboards. Never. Not one piece of DNA from Xana Kernodle was found outside her room. Not one piece of DNA from Maddie and Kaylee was found inside Xana's room. So if you're telling me for the 5,000th time that you have a perpetrator chasing Xana through the living room, right? Trying to cut her, slinging knives. She's over 2.0 alcohol level, carrying a plate of food. She doesn't drop any of the food. She outruns them. She dodges every attempt by the person to cut her, because if he cut her, then her blood would have been on one of those samples in the living room. But he's got so much blood on him that he's slinging the blood everywhere. Yet the second he gets over the threshold of the door, he stops slinging all that other blood that he slung everywhere else out because there's no sign of it in the room. And then when he cut Xana, they didn't mix in with her blood when it went all over the room, and they tested all the samples for that. So give me a break. The forensics prove exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And if you listen to Dylan's statements and you cross-reference the forensics, and if you cross-reference the time where Murphy starts barking in the midst of all of it, once you see it, this is why I keep saying, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. All I'm trying to do is help other people see it. Please let me know what your thoughts are, and please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. Till next time in part 5, you know what part 5 is going to be. It's going to be what happened after that crime, between then and the 911 call. Pobs out.